So tonight, we're going to quickly talk about schedules. We don't have everybody here, so we won't go very far with that discussion, but we need to, there are quite a few potential ordinance issues to take up, so we'll try to get some dates on the calendar. And then we'll talk about the removal of snow and ice from public sidewalks. And then I think maybe we'll take input from people in the audience after that, and then switch over to talking about the blight ordinance and some amendments we may want to make to that. So at the beginning, I just wanted to go through for the people that are here. I passed out I think Hillary had asked you if you could to bring your summer schedules with you. And I started this a little earlier than Hillary had asked because there's some things that we might want to move in fairly quickly. So I've just, could we just go through these dates? Ah, welcome.
Yeah. Sorry, seniority.
Now we have a quorum.
Seniority.
We're about to go through a schedule of dates. So I'll just tick through the dates one at a time, and you guys can tell me if you're not available. I'll put your name down, and hopefully we'll find some good dates for future meetings. June 18th. Everybody's good?
Yeah, that's Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Not fair. We only anticipated talking about July, but I thought.
We'll just go like this if we can do it.
I just want to know who's not available. So I
Okay,
can write that
sorry.
down. June 18th, June 19th.
I can't do.
Okay. Okay,
Yep.
It's Juneteenth.
Juneteenth, all right. June 20th, Thursday, June 20th.
I cannot.
Rita? Wednesday, June 26th.
I cannot.
I cannot.
Thursday, June 27th.
I cannot.
Rita? Monday, July 1. Tuesday, July 2. Wednesday, July 3.
I cannot.
Who was that?
Jen.
Wednesday, July 10.
About July 4th.
Right. Well, we won't have fireworks that day, so why not, right? Wednesday, July 10th. Thursday, July 11th. Tuesday, July 15. Tuesday, July, oh, that can't be right.
Monday, July 15th.
Monday, this is 15th. Tuesday, the 16th. Wednesday, the 17th. Thursday, the 18th. Monday, the 22nd. Tuesday, the 23rd.
Mhm.
Wednesday, the 24th. Tuesday, July 30,
I cannot.
and Wednesday, July 31.
Tom, I'm assuming that you're talking about a meeting in the evening?
Yeah.
Okay.
How many meetings are we talking?
Well,
It sounds like.
I don't know, in the summer, 1 or 2. So
Oh,
this
okay.
is not like it's just that we have all the presenters and all the other members who aren't here, and
Right.
it becomes kind of a nightmare if you don't
Yeah, I got it.
map this out. I'm also going to float just to hold dates, not to lock these in, but if we could, I thought I'd get your reaction, if we could hold the first Tuesday of each month, September through December.
Can I speak up? So as president of Interfaith Council, our meetings are the first Tuesday of the month, and I
Okay,
tend to run those meetings.
all right, no, we won't do that then.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
We'll try to find another idea.
I mean, if it's the only thing that works, I can try to ask them.
Oh, but it's
For
several,
this.
yeah, so.
It's the lead up for Martin Luther King, so it's a busy
Yeah.
time.
Can we do Monday nights?
I would be fine. So we'll see if we can make that work. Thank you.
I just have to check to make sure that that's not the night we do the Affordable Housing Committee meetings. If
I think
we do them on
sometimes it
Monday-
is,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think we do the first Monday of each month, but I'll double check that.
Okay. All right, well, we'll put that aside for now. So Gianna, do you and Tiger want to come up and Nick from afar? Hi, Nick.
Good evening, everyone.
Nick's,
Well, thanks for having us.
yeah,
Thanks
what
for
do you
being
got
here.
for us tonight?
Well, so thank you for hosting this meeting. Are we starting with, we're starting with the sidewalks? or- Okay. So I guess just to give a little history on why I reached out to the committee. In, sort of, we have a lot of residents that would like us to extend our sidewalk network. The walkability movement, and, I think it's great. But as part of that, I looked at, I also saw some comments on social media from residents about sidewalks not being cleared. And I looked into it a little further and noted that, technically the town is required to remove snow and ice from sidewalks outside of the downtown area. And so technically that's our mandate through ordinance. But we are only able to, through the staffing we have, really attend to 9 of the 20 miles of sidewalk that we currently have. So we already have a liability in front of us because we can't maintain it with staffing. So, and for those of us who went through the budget crisis, as all of you did, our budget is, with inflation and everything else, our budget is getting bigger and bigger, and it's harder and harder to control costs. So I am not interested in adding staffing to, plow the snow and ice. And I looked at it, and New Canaan is one of 2, and I only know of one because we looked through, we got a lot of responses from various municipalities. We are the only one I've seen that requires the town to maintain residential sidewalks. In every other community, Darien, all our light communities, the residents are in charge of taking care of the snow and ice during the winter on sidewalks abutting their property. I grew up in a sidewalk community. I couldn't believe that we were responsible for it, but I think it was an initiative that was an ordinance that was created way back when we were trying to get our first sidewalks in. And as an incentive, they, created this incentive, and it's nice, but at this point we have such a network that we can't attend to it. And I do believe that the town should maintain sidewalks where we have taken away bus service from kids. So like if you live in a neighborhood where you're required to walk to school, I do believe that that's the town's should be taking care of those sidewalks. But beyond that, I don't believe that it should be a town requirement. And we are the only town I know of. And if you can tell me another one, let me know. But we are the only town I know of. I think it's more of like a city thing, like big cities might do this, but communities with huge networks of expansive sidewalks. So, and I really kind of look at it as if we want to continue to expand our sidewalk network, I can't get on board without us figuring this issue out. Because it's just, Tiger, you can talk about the costs. I think 10 years ago or 12 years ago, you said that to do this and fully maintain all of the sidewalks was going to cost us something like $2 million extra a year to be able to do that. But you can.
Right. That was, we did an analysis at the time, back when the ordinance was adopted, as to if we were to take care of all the sidewalks in town, we were going to have to hire additional staff, or actually outside contractors is what we were looking at doing. And based upon the number of storms at the time and the amount of effort that we knew we were putting in with our park staff, all of our park staff, 13 members, that's all they do is parking lots and sidewalks. They do the parking lots at the schools, and then the sidewalks for snow removal. The highway does the roads and the other parking lots. And then in that regard, based upon the level of effort from the Parks Department at that time, John was able to detail out $2 million worth of work, $1 million to $2 million worth of work, that based upon the amount of snow we were getting at the time, the amount of call outs that we would get for refreeze. So that would be additional salting, if you will, and additional work on removal. That was the original cost.
I take it there are two caveats to that. One is that it was 16 years ago, so in today's dollars, it would be a different number.
Correct.
But also, didn't we have a lot fewer feet of sidewalk in 2008?
Yeah, at the time it was a calculation, I believe, on 15 miles, and now we're at 20 miles. From what I looked at today, I think it was a 15-mile calculation, and now we're at 20, a little over 20, about 21, I believe.
What
Yeah,
about
we have-
with climate change and things like that? Is there less snow? I mean, I think there's less snow than there used to be.
That's an interesting,
Yeah.
talk. At the time, it was estimated at 25.75 instances a year. We're averaging around 19 to 21, if you will, depending, for call outs, for storm events that actually where the men have to come in and plow or salt or sand, whereas, I'm sorry, salt, no sand, we're at 21, average about 21 a year. So it's down from the 25.75, 26 range, but the difference being is that there's still call outs associated with refreeze, if you will, because we're hovering around that 32-degree mark. So that wouldn't go away. It was like 25 events and 19 call outs, if you will, 19 return visits. So now even if you say you're at 21 and 16, we're still at a sizable amount. And we have a larger network, if you will, than what we had back in 2007 when the
And to
ordinance was
Tom's
adopted.
point, costs in 12 years have risen. I mean, we're in an inflationary
Right.
environment right now, so,
Right.
Could be $5 million.
yeah,
Right.
it's,
We would have to-
you might be at fewer call outs, but the price per call out probably is significantly higher.
We'd have to do the
Yeah.
calculation again. We will do the calculation again, just so you can have it, but with the idea of what's our current network. At the time, we had given about 6 different options as to what we could do, if you will, maintain what we had, just do the town, what the sidewalks that abut that abut town properties. So we had about 6 different scenarios, and the last scenario was if we were to take over the entire network, if you will.
Can I ask a question? If you were to
sure.
hire like seasonal workers and they weren't DPW employees and they were just, can you hire seasonal, like per diem? Does
Yes.
it have to be
No.
someone that gets full benefits and gets?
These were outside contractors. So basically, we would have a contractor that was on call to come in and like you have at your house, say, you have a guy who comes plow your
No,
sod.
we
Maybe not you,
shovel
but
ourselves, sorry.
others. But that we weren't looking at putting anyone additional onto the town's.
Right, okay.
We weren't looking to increase staff, if you will.
Okay.
It was strictly outside contractors.
I see.
So yeah, it would be a per diem worker or just you're coming in when you're called.
Mhm.
And there's a caveat there too, whether or not you're putting them on call. So therefore they have a little bit of a retainer to say, okay, we're here for the town when you need us. There's different contracts that you can enter into. Other municipalities do it for just their snow removal. They don't have enough staff to take care of their snow removal, so they have per diem workers that are on call. They pay them a small amount of money to have them be on call, and then when they're called in, they're paid an hourly wage depending upon what they're doing.
Maybe the slobs can do it.
Here you go.
Can I ask,
On their school days.
Right.
can I ask a question when you say, because I'm not quite certain of the law or the ordinance right now.
Mhm.
So you're saying outside of downtown, we are required. you
So
are
it used,
required.
when they, back in, was it 2008, when this ordinance was originally, and they were looking to do more sidewalks. Originally, the town took care of downtown sidewalks.
Right.
And then individuals were required for
Beyond.
sidewalks abutting their property. Once the ordinance was changed in 2018, and it was really done to sort of,
2008.
2008,
yeah.
Yeah.
So what did I say?
2018.
So
Oh,
it was
sorry,
changed
2008.
at that point.
It changed at that point because they were really trying to encourage you weren't in town then, but there was a referendum related to the Main Street sidewalks. There was a lot of pushback about getting sidewalks in, and I think this was probably, and I remember it vaguely, I wasn't super engaged in the conversation at that time, but I think it was sort of an inducement to get that referendum over the line.
But was it just that, I guess what I'm asking is, right now, today,
Mhm.
is the town required to
Yes.
clean, I'm not done, sorry, to clean every single sidewalk in the town? Because when I
Except for
called.
downtown.
Because, no.
Right,
Except
Except for
except for,
downtown.
except for the downtown.
The shop owners have to take
Right.
care of.
Shop owners.
Yes.
Other
Correct.
than that, because when I called about this, I was told we had to clean our own sidewalks, which
You-
we
Well,
do.
They were mistaken.
Well,
So,
you do, we're on Fieldcrest, you do, but
Oh.
in the, because you're asking, it's a two different question,
oh,
right?
that's
So
my question.
depends upon, it depends upon when we're receiving the call. It depends upon if it's a resident calling about sidewalk in front of their house, or if it's a property owner in the business district calling about their property. It's two different answers, because outside the business district, right, town's responsible for it,
Outside the
okay?
business, okay.
Outside the business, town's responsible for it. Inside the business district, the businesses are responsible
Okay.
for it, except for 1 and 2 family homes inside the business district. Town's still responsible for those, okay? So if there's a 1 or 2 family home inside the business district, the town is responsible for those as well.
But Fieldcrest.
But
would be
Fieldcrest would be the
considered-
town.
It would be the town.
It would
That's
be
in
the
the
town.
business district?
No, it's
Is
not.
that big, do
No.
kids
She
have to
then-
walk to?
then
to
she
So
school?
then she,
Is there
you-
bus
Then the
then
town should be doing
The
it.
town should be
Town
doing
should
yours.
count.
See, you
Right.
were misinformed.
Is
You were
that because
misinformed.
because of
You were
bus service
misinformed.
that you were
Sorry.
talking about?
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I was trying to establish,
Yes,
I wasn't just
yes.
concerned, I'm not.
No,
only
no, no,
No.
no, but
Just
I
as an
knew what you were gonna
example.
ask. I'm
Right.
sorry if I jumped in,
That's
but I
okay.
knew exactly what you were
I
gonna
just
ask.
wanted to make sure. that's
Residents who
clear.
are not in the business district are currently should be getting town snow removal of their sidewalks.
So we're not.
By ordinance, we
Right.
cannot
Right.
currently maintain that sidewalk. So we already have a built-in liability.
So we're
for the
already
sidewalk.
not fulfilling that
Correct.
ordinance. And
Right.
that, again, I'm not
Correct.
trying to, I'm just.
No, no,
trying to
No,
I
it's
understand.
okay.
agree. It's
So today,
confusing.
we're not fulfilling
Correct.
We're,
what
we're,
supposed
we're taking
to.
about, we're doing about 9 out of the 20.
9 out of the 20.
If you will, right? So and at the time that the ordinance was written, we said we wouldn't be able to do all of them. And they
Right.
said, tier them out, if you will,
Uh-huh.
okay? On a tiered basis as to what you're going to do, what you might be able to do, and what you're never really going to get to. So we did exactly that. So it's in a triage basis, and we take care of the ones that we need to. South Avenue, we added Main Street once Main Street was added.
Probably farm.
But
for
Farm
kids,
Road,
yeah.
Park Street, a couple of other areas, Heritage Hill, out Owen Oak, and then we added Richmond Hill since we added that sidewalk as well. But so at the time that the ordinance was written, that was what our directive was, because our budget didn't increase to manage. So we said, we can't get to everything. And they said, that's okay, you can't get to everything. That was the understanding at the time. That's okay, you can't get to everything. Triage out what you can, and we triaged out what we can do, and that's what we've been doing.
When you
So
say, I'm sorry, when you say they, they meaning the town, to you.
Yes.
Okay, I get,
Yeah,
okay.
sorry.
I get, understand.
Can I ask something just to clarify? So the figures you use, it was 9 point something is what we could handle and nothing beyond that. Is what's being proposed suggested with an amendment to this, that would mean nobody, like,
No, I
so
think-
would anybody be grandfathered is what my question is.
I wouldn't call it grandfathering. I would say any sidewalks where, because we have removed bus service for some neighborhoods and we expect those children to walk to school.
Mhm.
In those neighborhoods, I would say the town should be, I mean, you can talk about it, I mean, but my thought would be, we should, as a town, be maintaining the sidewalks where we are requiring children to walk to school. Because I think that that's a fair, we've taken away bus service from those children and those families, and so we should maintain the sidewalks on
And
those
what
streets.
Can I ask Tiger, just approximately how many miles is that? Like, do you have a sense?
I don't have that. It would be less than the 9 that we're doing at present, but I'd have to sit with Roy. Roy gave me an idea of where everything was as far as how far the kids walk, but it is actually in essence, from the front door, okay, if you will, the sidewalk right out from the front door to the school door. So it's not by a radius. It'd be easier if it was a radius, then I could just draw a circle around the school and I would know exactly where it is. This one, we actually have to go out and measure everybody's house. We had to do that on Fieldcrest. When we completed the sidewalks on Farm Road from South Avenue to South School, people that were on Fieldcrest wound up losing bus service because now they were within the walking district, walking
Well,
distance.
no, so our elementary still has bus service,
Right, there was,
but in middle school, it's right there. Middle school does not, and high school does not, which makes sense.
So I would say those students, we should be plowing it because you're making middle schooler and high schoolers walk if they don't have bus service.
Yes, a lot, I mean, it's a lot of sidewalk right there.
And parents might not be able to get
Yeah.
up and,
Yeah, I mean,
Take it forward.
I'm not trying to, it's just, we now have an untenable situation and a huge liability. And I can't, I can't get on board with another inch of sidewalk right now, given sort of the way this ordinance is written, and I am constantly getting requests to add more sidewalks. Everybody wants to walk. Everybody wants more walkability. It's, Jeff Speck talked about walkable cities. I think it's great, but we are in an untenable situation in the town right now, and we have to find a solution that removes the liability that comes with those sidewalks.
I like to make an analogy, start with an analogy and then go to the point. A couple of meetings ago, I had asked Tiger about the waste treatment plant and how it was going to be upgraded and how it was going to be paid for. And one of the points that Tiger made was that although we have a fund and although it's not used by New Canaan as a whole, the whole of New Canaan does get benefits from it, and therefore should be bonded and distributed among all the residents and be expanded. That it wouldn't just be up to the fund and the residents in the center of town that have that service to pay for it. I thought about it and I thought it was fair because it is the larger community who benefits from it. So couldn't you say the same thing about sidewalks? It's not just the people in town that are using the sidewalks. It's not the distance or proximity to the schools or the shopping. It's everybody who wants to walk in town. And as we're thinking of expanding further the sidewalks to reach all the parks, to make it a network, to make it compatible with Darien and other towns, it just seems fair to me that the whole town should pay for it and not the individuals that are abutting the sidewalk. I calculated based on the map that Tiger was kind enough to include, there are about 300 properties that abut a sidewalk right now that are not part of town properties. So these are individuals, they're co-ops, residences. So that doesn't count how many residents, because if you count Heritage Hill, how many units are there? I'm just counting properties as they are delineated in the map. That's a handful of people that would be carrying the burden of costs for the entire town. So if everybody in town pays for it through their taxes, at least they're contributing towards the betterment of New Canaan. I don't believe that it's also fair after the town committed with the condition that they could build, because there was such a argument and controversy regarding the sidewalks, that at least if the sidewalks were built, the liability and the cleanup ordinance that's being considered would not even come into play, that the town would take care of it. And with that, the sidewalks went ahead. Not everybody's happy. And for the new sidewalks that are being proposed, people are not happy. Some may be, but they're not living with the sidewalk in front of their house. So what I'm saying is, it's such a controversial issue to begin with, that the whole town is benefiting from, that paying the additional $50, $100 a year to maintain the sidewalks should not be a big deal. If it is $5 million, like you said, Tom, our biggest problem is, what are we doing? Why are we building more sidewalks? That's as much as
I
we
can tell
spend
you,
on
if that's the
roads.
way you think about it, I cannot get behind another inch of sidewalk.
And neither can
I
I.
can't.
If we are to charge or leave the
I mean,
responsibility.
and we're gonna have to raise taxes just to maintain the ones that we aren't maintaining currently, because we're not even taking care of half of the sidewalks that we're required to by the ordinance. And we're an aberration. We are the only town in this state, and maybe one other, because we've looked at it, that has this kind of situation. I grew up with sidewalks. I couldn't even believe that this is what we did in this community.
But why would we build sidewalks that we knew we couldn't afford in the long run?
You know, I was not part of that decision.
Mhm.
I was not part of that decision. But you know what? I have to say sidewalks are great. I mean, we're trying to encourage people to walk. It makes, you know, it's healthier adults, it's less traffic, it's more, you know, eco-friendly to walk than drive. You know, I mean, there's all kinds of great, it adds to a sense of community. I'm all for sidewalks. We can't afford this. I mean, we just can't. And so I'm trying to find a way to be able to expand sidewalks, which people have said they want, in a way that we can afford, and we cannot afford what we have right now.
But if people wanted sidewalks, why wouldn't they pay for them? mean,
I
why do
can
they
tell you, we went to
assume-
referendum. If you were
Yeah.
here, we went to referendum for the first one. So it wasn't an evenly matched. And if
Right.
people start to understand, at that time, I don't know how forward looking we were with costs associated with maintenance. And we knew how much it would cost to build them.
Mhm.
But I don't think at that time we probably had good data on, you know, how much we were spending for snow removal and stuff. Now we have that kind of data. And I can tell you, sharing that with the public, I mean, this year we are going to have a very large tax increase. And I can tell you when, you know, we are not now in a zero interest rate environment, taxes are going up. And if you start to see, you know, your tax bill, and then you say, oh, you know, the town also wants to charge you another $100, $200 a year for sidewalks. And, you know, and by the way, it's just downtown or, you know, in the downtown area. I think you're going to start to have right now, nobody's gotten their tax bill this year. I can guarantee you, we're all going to hear about it.
I think that's a big amount of information to drop on us, to say
Well, I
that the
mean,
tax
you know,
bill's going up. And I mean,
You
you
voted
know-
for the
you-
budget. You know what the budget
You know
was.
more, but I didn't know that the Board of Finance had set the mill rate, and I thought that the grand list
Well,
went
they
up,
haven't
and I
set it
thought.
yet. They're
and-
setting it
And so
in 2 weeks.
I think that, you know, this is just the beginning of the process, and we don't know what the taxes are going to be, but I think, you know, everything's a trade-off. So if people want more sidewalks, then it's a balance. If you want more sidewalks, you're going to have to pay for them. And that's like a decision I think that the people have to make. But I guess one of my questions is, and I think it's a little bit harder to get this data, of all these towns that have these sidewalk ordinances, how's it going? You know, like who's enforcing it? Are people actually shoveling their sidewalks? You know, is it really making it better? Because there's the hypothetical liability issue, but then there's the actual practical issue. Okay, so, you know, how many houses are there in Westport or Fairfield, and how many people are actually doing it? Because I'm more interested in actually getting done, not just an ordinance, right? Like, so that people can safely pass. So I have no data. Do you have any data on like how that's working out for them? Just because the residents are in charge of it, are they actually doing it?
I sent out a notice on our listserv for DPW directors, specifically about the ordinance itself, who had an ordinance, who didn't have an
Yeah.
ordinance. And I received let's say, I think it was 10 responses, if you will, from various individuals, none of which opined on whether or not it was working or not. They just came back with whether they had an ordinance and what the
Right.
ordinance was for.
Yeah.
I can tell you that everybody came back with an ordinance that they had one that said that it was on the abutting property owner.
Yeah.
And 2 of which actually had it where the maintenance was on the abutting property owner as well, not just the snow removal, but none of them opined on it. But I can certainly go back and say, hey, for those of you who have the ordinance, how is it working? You know, do you find compliance? Do you not find compliance? Do you have a finding system? We know
They
that
did, most of them
we know
had
that
a
some of them have a
finding
finding
system.
system where if they didn't, they would be fined, or the highway department or the parks department would go out, do the work, and then lien the property for the amount that it costs the highway department to go do that work, or the parks department to go do that work. But I can certainly go back and ask them anecdotally, you know, how many times do you actually have to do that? How many times you have to visit a property? How many times you have to lien a property? That kind of
Because
thing.
it's one thing to shift the liability, and I understand what you're talking about, but it's another thing of what's actually going to make the town safer and more walkable and better for everyone. So that's why I don't think that data, I haven't seen any of that, so.
Yeah, I mean, the one data point that we do have is that less than 50% of the sidewalks are currently being plowed by the town. So I'm sure you guys are super diligent about
Well,
your
no, I have a
sidewalk.
great example actually
but-
when you're done.
But, and I have some practical questions too. I'm super agnostic about this, so I'll just
Yeah,
come
me
at,
too.
obviously there's a lot to work through, but I would assume the town would continue plowing sidewalks in front of the schools.
We have, anything that
Police
we,
department, does the library count as like a town building, or the library would be responsible for plowing theirs? I'm just thinking of it from a practical perspective, looking at South Avenue, you would have like this big part of the sidewalk cleared, and then it would be like not, or, because I don't, when would you need to comply? Within 24 hours of a storm, within 20 minutes
It's
of a storm?
usually, the most people are like, it depends on the, I've seen as quickly as 12 hours, but most of them are like 24.
Yeah.
Our
So you
current-
would have like gaps,
our
right? Where you
current
would have
ordinance is six-
between,
is 6 hours.
yeah, but you would have between the police station, let's say, and the school and Saks unplowed.
Well, I think that's a town road though, and I think they're gonna do that. That South
It's-
Avenue is part of the year 9 out of
So,
21, right?
At present, South Avenue
At
is part of of what we do. That's
Right.
correct. It's
Yeah.
not a town road, it's a state road,
State,
but we do that portion. But to Hillary's point, if we're required, the ordinance does not allow the town to not do theirs, right? So the police department, you're correct, we're required, right? So the state statute doesn't say that we can't. So in essence, if you went the other way, we would have to do the police department and we wouldn't touch from the others. To Deanna's point, it's a walkable area for the students, so we would likely still maintain that.
So there's no bus service on South Avenue for the.
Not for
kids
those
that-
walkers, no.
Hold on one.
Oh, yeah,
just
sorry. I
one
was like,
second.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, what about like the, like Millport and Canaan Parish? Do those count? Do you?
No,
Okay.
that's, those are private.
Those are
So
private.
that's,
And
yeah.
There's a bus that goes there.
There
Right.
is, because they would have to cross, like for East.
They have to
students,
cross
would
they have to
the
cross
state road, So
123.
they do have a bus, so
That's
I've
correct.
only seen them on walk to school days. I'm just wondering from a practical standpoint, if you're going out to plow certain places anyway, would you start and stop and start and stop? Or do you just do
It
the
takes,
whole?
we had that discussion and it actually takes longer. The machine doesn't work that fast and the men don't work that fast. So it's actually faster for the machine not to plow than it is to plow, if you will. So to come off the sidewalk onto the road, drive down the road, come back on the sidewalk in certain areas. And we do that in certain areas where we'll plow a stretch, come off in, in certain locations where it's either in the business district or elsewhere, come onto the road and then come back on the sidewalk, if you will. Because it is faster for, than to do it. Because that was the question. Well, we're already on the sidewalk. Why wouldn't we just continue? But it comes down to time, if you will.
Yeah, so I just feel like I have an interesting case study, which is the little microcosm of Fieldcrest and Village, because, so I have the entire mail list of, and when people have questions, they ask me, do we need to, shovel our sidewalks? I asked the question, yes, we do. So I said, the town is not responsible, which I lied to them. Sorry.
You didn't lie, you were misinformed.
I was, whatever.
You did-
So I said, no, well, we're responsible. Town's not going to do it. So we need to. So look, again, I'm kind of agnostic. We plow, we shovel our driveway, we shovel our sidewalk. Frankly, I like making my son do something. So for me personally, it's not onerous and did it. I had varying degrees of responses, right? Because some people were kind of upset, right? They're really upset because I didn't choose this sidewalk. I didn't necessarily want this sidewalk, and now I'm responsible for it. I had older couples who my back hurts, so I'm gonna have to pay someone to do that. And of course, we were like, oh, Joey down the street can come and do it for $10 or whatever. We were trying to figure out like how to help people, but frankly, I ended up shoveling some of my neighbors because I knew they couldn't. So you would see a patchwork. Some did it, some didn't. Some did it later. Some did it and then sometimes you would do it and then it would snow again. Then you'd have to do it again. It was really interesting. I think, some people would say, oh, so what if it's not, shoveled, you can walk on it, you can figure it out. Like, we're not made of porcelain, like we could figure this out and it's not a big deal. Other people would say, it's really not that safe. And if I slip, who am I gonna, what's the liability there? So I think there's a lot of things to consider, but I think if we are concerned with having it cleaned the way it should and not to have liability, I personally don't think we should rely on homeowners to be doing that, because I don't think that we're gonna have the right compliance. I think it's gonna be very difficult to get people to comply. That's just my sort of feeling.
As a separate thing, just because of the analogy you gave, I'm wondering as we explore this further, and I don't want to make it cumbersome with too many loopholes, but maybe it is something to be considering if we are going to go in the direction that you're talking about, perhaps we could address things like people with disabilities or older couples. I don't know if there's a way to work that in, some certain exceptions or not. But to explore that.
I will put it down. We'll see what good. I just think, stepping back and giving this a broader historical perspective. So I grew up, we had a small house, we had a lawn, a sidewalk, a little more lawn in the street. And as in New Canaan, we owned all that and we felt responsible for all that. That was just part of the values, and we shoveled the sidewalk. We were pretty reliable. I think arguably, I would argue that we were more reliable than the town would have been, because the town starts at one end of the process and has to sweep through the whole town. And by the time they get done, the weather may have changed. Whereas individual homeowners can go out and just kind of take care of it. A lot of people have landscapers who come to plow, and they have shovels on the truck. And, doing the sidewalk too is just really not, a big deal. So there is another perspective. I wouldn't approach this by assuming that everything the town doesn't plow won't get plowed. It's possible that it might get plowed better. And of course, the individual homeowner is making the decision as agency, his responsibility, liability, agency. This is his property. I think that may be one of the reasons why the state and that our ordinance was not leading, we were following. The state changed the state statutes some years in advance of this, and they said for the whole state, it's okay for every town to basically move away from wherever you were and putting the liability on the individual homeowners, like it was years ago. And that was a consensus. I'm not aware that there's been an uprising of resistance to that. Now I think that what's different about our town, what's different about our town is that not only do we have opinions, but we've been living in a different world where the town's like on Main Street, the town always takes care of it.
Yeah.
So if you have something you don't want to give up.
Well, and also, so in addition to the people who may have gotten, like, someone hurt their back, so they couldn't do it, they have an older couple, or someone's like a shut-in and they didn't really know what was going on. And that was another instance. There's also people who, they have dual income houses. They leave their house, and someone going to call them, hey, you've got snow on your sidewalk. I got to figure out who to call to get that.
That's not unique to New Canaan.
No, I know. No,
I was
I
just
know.
saying,
I mean,
every
like,
other town.
I
that has-
understand. No, I
Yeah,
understand.
and so I think that
I'm putting that out there though, as
no, of
that's a
course.
challenge.
I think it is, and I think that, and again, I would like a sidewalk, and if I had a sidewalk in front of my house, I would plow it or have somebody plow. But if need be, it's a nice benefit that the town currently takes ownership of that, and when you find out that you have liability if somebody slips and falls, that's encouraging to get people to comply if they can. It's not going to be it's not a perfect system now, far from it. Like, just because the town has this ordinance that puts the responsibility on them, it's not getting done in the majority of town. So what's the answer?
Yeah.
Right? Like, philosophically, I think you can debate it, but at the end of the day, where the rubber meets the road is like, is this getting done? And all of the things that we're considering are true in Darien, are true. And I will say, just anecdotally, being on the Darien Moms Facebook page, the plowing doesn't have, people complain. They're like, I was trying to get my kid to school on the sidewalk. Like, isn't this on the homeowners to do? And people are reminded. But it's a tough issue because you've got reliance on the current system that we have now for a large number of people who have an expectation that their side, and maybe they bought their home based on that expectation, or live, in a condo based on the expectation that this would be plowed and taken care of. So it's a really tricky.
It's tricky.
There's another perspective that I think we ought to touch on. I wonder if Nick wants to comment on the issues come up as to whether the Americans with Disabilities Act has relevance in this situation.
I don't think it does, honestly. And I mean, I just recently had this come across my desk where, does the ADA somehow come into play with these ordinances that put the onus on the abutting property owners. And no, I mean, I've been representing municipalities for the past 15 years. Like the first select woman has said, every town that I'm aware of, period, every city has this sort of best practice ordinance in place. Like Councilman Butterworth said, I mean, the legislature specifically has given this authority to municipalities, the state legislature. And it's given us that power for a long time. Originally, back since, I could go back years and years and years, but the original statute that grants our baseline municipal powers, 7-148, that first says, oh yes, we can require that abutting property owners remove the snow and the ice, but the town would still have the liability if someone got hurt. Then I think Tom stated before, in 81, the Connecticut legislature added a new law that shifted, or at least it allowed towns to pass an ordinance that not only put the onus for snow removal on property owners, it also shifted liability in the event of an injury to those property owners. And after that, every municipality has effectively done that. And I, in my experience, have never seen a ADA claim raised, let alone anything get litigated or go through the CHRO process. And I took a quick look at some of the issues that could be raised here, and I just don't think it applies, because what the ADA requires is that towns provide access to what they control. And right now, our ordinance says we effectively control all of the sidewalks except for the business district. And so what we would be doing here is then saying, okay, we're putting the onus on all of these abutting property owners now. It's just another aspect of how they would get their driveway shoveled, or just how they would remove their snow, whether they hire someone to do the plowing or whether they do it themselves. If it doesn't get done, municipalities, as part of this ordinance, provide for penalties, tickets, and citations. Those do work. Towns do use those for enforcement purposes. Like Tiger mentioned, if a property is a repeat offender, so to speak, and an ongoing snow event, days at a time, and it becomes a safety hazard, DPW can go onto the property, clean it up, and we can legally put our teeth in to get that money back from the property owner. You know, it might take a little while to actually get that money, but we can still put a lien on the property. So there are some checks in place here, and I mean, it does seem to have been working. And from a legal perspective, I mean, speaking from the town attorney's office, I'm not seeing, as I sit here tonight, any red flags that are giving me cause for concern from the ADA perspective, because we would be shifting that control then. If we made this change, we would be shifting control back to someone. It wouldn't be the town anymore, but now the duty and the liability has been shifted somewhere. Right now, that duty and liability still rests with the town. So under the ADA, yeah, we are liable for keeping those paths clear because we own it right now. And what the first select woman's proposing is to shift that onus for something that we can't currently afford, to protect us really legally.
Yeah.
What happens in a case where you have curb cuts for handicap accessibility at the corners? Whose responsibility is it to clean that?
The abutting property owner.
So if they don't clean the crosswalk cutout and somebody slips and falls, it becomes the responsibility of the property owner?
That's right.
That's why you have umbrella policies.
This is terrible. It's a huge cost.
That's why everybody,
It's a
you have it for
huge
your
cost.
home. That's why people invest in umbrella policies.
Well, that's great if you can afford it, but there are families here that can, and there are seniors.
This
on
is every
15.
town. Darien has the same they have the same economic profile that New Canaan has. We're no different. Greenwich, no, same economic profile. They have, you know, we are an aberrant community in this regard. And I don't know how to, I'm trying to be responsive to people wanting sidewalks, and I cannot get on board with any more sidewalks. In fact, like some of us in the office are like, well, geez, maybe we need to get rid of some of the sidewalks because we can't take care of them. Maybe we need to rip them up, you know, and I don't want to do that. Obviously, that's not what we're trying to do, but I cannot in good conscience take that liability on the town. It's irresponsible of me to not bring this forward for everyone to fully understand. I mean, you know, I was just sitting here and I don't want to do this either, but do we look at it like the sewer district? Do you have an extra tax for those people who have sidewalks for maintenance? And do we figure out how much do we pay in maintenance and then distribute that like we do the sewer tax? I mean, I don't know, you know, you guys can deliberate how you think the best way to handle this is, but the town cannot afford this. And
I'm also thinking of something else. There's probably an instance where people might be double billed in a sense, because if you live in a little community where you're part of what your, I don't know, your dues or whatever.
oh, right, is maintenance.
Is maintenance, association fees in
Right,
some of those like
right,
little communities
right.
where they're getting rid of
Mhm.
the snow. And then if we apply taxes, that person is then paying, and you could argue there's a benefit, but they are then paying for everyone else's sidewalks to be done. So they're kind of being double billed in a sense, because they're paying twice. They're paying for the duties, they're paying for the association fees, which are taking away the snow. And then they would also be paying for higher taxes.
Well, they wouldn't be,
which would
the
clean.
association wouldn't be paying for the sidewalk in front of the units to be. So what we're just talking about,
Even
we're not
those.
talking, we're talking about the sidewalk in front that is like almost in the easement, right? Or in the
Mhm,
right
in
of
the
way.
right of way.
Okay, so that's.
It's the right of way, so that, yeah, they would not be paying for
Okay.
that in their association.
Okay, I'm trying to look at
Yeah.
every, I know, situation, so I
Yeah.
get it. Okay.
Nick, could you comment a little bit more on how we should view this liability exposure, given the fact that we're insured?
No.
Because it's a business question, right? It's like if.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what our policy, you know, the specifics of our coverage looks like. I mean, I would really be speaking off the cuff, which I prefer not to do.
Yeah, I think that's a safe.
But you think that getting off the hook from all this liability has value. You can't quantify it, but you're the lawyer. You must either get nervous about our being exposed to this liability or not.
Well, come on, Tom, I'm not gonna come out and just say that in public now.
Right, okay. Now there's a lawyer answer.
No, I mean, look, it's a gap here. It leaves room for someone to make the claim and bring the suit. No question. Where we are right now.
Can I ask a different question? I'm thinking of in the perspective, it's interesting what you were saying, that like, if we weren't to go ahead and make this change, you wouldn't be behind more sidewalks. And it's interesting because some of the feedback that I heard from some of the, you know, conservation people is like, if we do this, then everybody will stop wanting sidewalks because they won't want to pay for it. So, you know, it's two different. And again, I'm agnostic, I'm learning.
Right. Well, one's a
today.
town bill,
Yeah.
one's an individual bill.
But question I have, I'm just trying to like think out of the box a little. So I was living in town and not so paying attention, but remember it being kind of heated and trying to figure out why because I live so far out, but there was so much passion on both sides in 2008 with Main Street. But then it seemed like in subsequent years, there was excitement over the green link, you know. So I'm just curious about like who takes care of the new sidewalks that come out of town from Elm going up to like you know, the nature center. Does the town cover that?
Yes.
So and that would still be, because nobody owns that, like, the property along Weed as you go from Irwin to,
Those are, there are parts of it, those are property owners back there. They're set back.
so, okay, so
There are
they would
property
do.
owners.
So
back
there's
there.
nothing, so some of these Green Link partners, like Garden Club, Beautification, Land Trust, they don't contribute anything to any of that or
No.
maintenance of any of that.
No.
Okay, so that was my question.
I have a separate question. Have there been any claims in the past 16 years? You said 2008, the onus shifted to the town. Have there been, I mean, you're talking about liability and the probability, and it's based on what currently exists, right? So in the past 16 years, has anyone claimed to sue the town because they had a problem on a sidewalk?
Well, that's,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
yeah. Yeah, well, if you're asking just in general,
But
yeah.
Elm Street is the town owned. I'm sorry, I'm talking about
No,
a,
Elm is private property.
a business
Oh,
owners.
business.
Okay, I'm talking about the property owners, like residential properties.
Business in front of where the house.
No, I'm talking about what we're discussing, right? Like, so someone lives on
Residential.
residential
You're asking
areas.
whether we've been sued on a residential side?
Yeah.
Someone slipped and fell down a residential sidewalk.
It
You
was
keep
in the
saying,
Canaanite.
that was,
That
that
was Elm
was,
Street.
that was on Elm, Street. The one that
It
you're,
was, I
you-
believe it was
No.
Millport, and someone was walking on what they deemed to be a path, a known path that wasn't maintained. And they sued. It was in the New Canaanite. I have it in my binder. I'll send it to
I'll
you.
have to look, I don't,
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah, I have to look back and see exactly, it's a long time frame, if you will.
Right.
She's asking from 2016 or before,
It's
it's,
within that.
Well,
I understand that.
I
There's-
think,
I mean, if you
Yeah.
don't know the
my
answer to the
response to that,
question,
Kimberly,
I
would
would
be
just say
that,
I'd be
that
interested in knowing that.
you have insurance for the liability that you are liable for.
Mm-hmm.
And, we have a constantly evolving populace. We have, now that this is known, people, unfortunately, it's like I think there was a lot of confusion about who was responsible. And, I think making it clear who is, can possibly change sort of behavior too.
I have another question. Again, I'm also agnostic. I think
Yeah.
it's tricky. This is
Yeah.
really
It is.
complicated, and I can see both sides, so.
It is.
But I'm just thinking, so I understand as a homeowner, if something happens on my property, I have to cover that liability. But the sidewalk is not my property, right? It's the town.
It is.
It
It
is.
is.
It is my property.
The town has an easement.
We have a right of
No,
way, but
You have
Right,
a right
but-
of way, and it's, no,
So
it's
that's not part of the
actually,
easement. The
No,
it's
sidewalk's
actually,
not
wait a
part of the
minute.
easement.
So, okay, the dirt under the sidewalk
Hold
is,
on. No, the property line ends at usually the back of the walk. So the property line does not extend into the road. We don't have an easement. Our right of way extends, but the
Really?
property line ends at the back of the walk.
okay. thank
If you
Rick.
look at the property lines, normally they
So
they
I
end
don't
at the back of the
Oh,
walk.
and again,
We
I,
don't own it.
I'm happy to
You maintain
shovel
it,
my own thing, but,
Right.
so I'm responsible for maintaining it, but I don't own that piece.
no.
Okay, it's again, just trying to clarify. All right.
The right of way varies throughout, if you will. So there are certain situations as to some people have more frontage or less frontage,
Mhm.
if you will, from the edge of the road to their property.
Right.
Because each road is different and each road was built at a different time. West Road is an anomaly in and of itself, if you
Right.
will. But typically in the sidewalked areas, the back of the walk, we try to push the walk as far back as possible. The back of the walk is the edge of the property line.
So would my insurance cover that? If I had insurance for
Well,
my property
you'd be bound, I can't
and
speak for it, but
something
it-
happened, would my insurance company say, sorry, we don't cover that because,
it's a
not-
question for legal,
know.
but by statute, if you were already bound by it, by ordinance, if you were bound by it.
But you're
yes,
not bound
that's
by
a,
it. Correct.
that's a legal question if anyone has an answer to that.
It's kind of more of an insurance adjuster, like
Right.
your insurance agent question.
Yeah.
It's.
Yeah,
but-
because every
currently
insurance
it's
policy.
liable.
But the, what?
You're currently not liable.
Right,
Town is
because the
liable.
town is, because the
So
town
if
is.
No,
someone
I know, I
has
mean, I made
you
a
would
change.
But it
tell them
doesn't
to sue the
matter.
town.
I don't think it matters that, I think it matters what your responsibility is, not necessarily that you own that piece, but that.
Yeah, so can I just jump in real quick?
Yeah.
I mean, this, I'm not opining here, giving any sort of personal legal advice, but I mean, if it were me, and the town did act favorably on this type of a change, and now the duty and liability has become mine to shovel the sidewalk, I would call my insurance company and say, hey, I need to shovel my sidewalk now whenever it snows. How much is it gonna cost me now for my premiums to go up $20 or whatever it's gonna be for you guys to insure me for liability for those purposes? I mean, $20, not really. I have no idea. That's the insurance adjuster question, but I mean, I think that's how that works. Yeah, people are gonna have to pay more for their insurance.
Of course, if you have umbrella policies.
I was gonna say.
Or yeah,
With umbrellas, don't.
You don't
yeah,
have to
I mean,
worry.
that too.
And so that's the same thing, like if someone's cleaning your gutter, your gutters and they fall off the ladder. So you have to have it anyways, like.
You don't have
Right.
to have an umbrella policy.
Even an umbrella policy, I don't know, sure. Or like we have someone working on a house and they get hurt.
Who's talking?
Sorry, who's that?
That was Candace.
Oh,
I mean, I think that's an interesting question. I don't think it necessarily falls on whether you actually own that piece or whether the town has a right of way.
well, we're not gonna vote on this tonight.
Yeah, but there's a lot of questions. It's a lot of questions.
Lot of questions.
Yeah.
I think we wanna all stew on this a little bit and get input from the other town council members, committee members, and revisit it, come back to it.
Yep.
I thought what we do now is take comments from the public on this issue, and then we'll move to the blight proposal.
If you could please state your name before you make a comment, anybody on Zoom or
Absolutely.
present, so that we have it for the record, and your address.
So I'm Teresa Pinkowski. My husband John is here. We live at 161 Old Studio Road here in New Canaan.
Could you spell your last name for me? I'm sorry.
PIONTKOWSKI.
Okay.
I had found some research on Weston.
Oh, by the way, excuse me, we're gonna try to limit this to 3 minutes, so.
Okay, I'd ask you to look at Weston. They have a community connectivity sidewalk project and a town center pedestrian improvement project. And they started 2023-ish. Liability for slips and falls or for maintenance will be the responsibility of the town of Weston per statute. So you might want to look at that. There are others. I sent an email in others, not necessarily in Connecticut. I sent an email on Monday, June 3rd. I'd like to submit that. And then I have a statement. I'm a 34-year resident taxpayer in town affected by a proposed P&Z supported and ARPA funded sidewalk on Route 106, Old Stamford Road between Bristow Bird Sanctuary and Gower Road on a yet to be determined side of the road. I understand it is highly likely the town will push the liability and financial burden of the public sidewalk, snow, ice removal, leaf debris removal, and salting on residential homeowners with abutting public sidewalks because of a desire to increase walkability sidewalks and the high cost to maintain them. The current ordinance, effective since 2008, requires the town to accept liability and responsibility for snow and ice removal from public sidewalks in the residential zone. A change in this ordinance may change a fundamental premise on which the sidewalks were installed. For example, Main Street in 2012. The 2014 Plan of Conservation and Development states the ordinance, quote, removed some concerns about sidewalks to other areas and enhances the ability of the town to extend sidewalks where desired. The draft goals, strategies, policies, and actions for the 2024 POCD includes, quote, create and adopt a comprehensive sidewalk expansion plan for downtown and the surrounding area. If the town views sidewalks as a priority, it should allocate sufficient funds for liability and maintenance of them. It is inequitable to place this new time, labor, and financial burden on a subset of homeowners with comparatively smaller lot sizes, as well as potentially impose fines on residents failing to properly and/or timely remove snow and ice from a public sidewalk. Additionally, town can just as easily revise the ordinance to place the financial costs and liability of general sidewalk maintenance and repair on the homeowner abutting a public sidewalk. I'm opposed to any ordinance, section 5448 revision, that would allow town to shirk public sidewalk liability and maintenance responsibilities, and disheartened by the lack of transparency in their consideration of this revision without broad public dialogue. I didn't see any notice of this meeting besides the, on the calendar. There's no discussion about this. People are completely unaware that this is happening. And I think that with all of the discussion and surveys for the the 2024 POCD, that everyone is apparently, expressing this great interest in increasing the sidewalks around town. There should be some notification or discussion that the town is not, that's me. You can turn my,
Thank
Um,
you.
I thought
Thank
that
you.
was my own. I just think there should be more discussion. And I
Just
think
for,
it's,
just for the record, this is only the very beginning of the process. This wasn't even a live discussion a week ago, so you're here at the beginning.
I want to tell you, 2.5 years ago-ish, when there was the beginning of the discussion about the sidewalk that would go on 106, aside from all this discussion about whether or not it's actually safe to put a sidewalk around the turn on 106, besides all of that, Tiger said that at some point, yes, the town is responsible currently, but he didn't foresee that in the future. So this is like 2 years of people in town talking about this financial burden. And in fact, if a sidewalk is put in front of my house, I don't own that property. That is state property,
Okay.
and I'm going to have the liability for it. So
Thank
it's,
you.
I don't currently have the liability for it.
We won't be keeping any secrets from the public about this process. Do we have anybody else? Do you have somebody online, Tucker?
Yeah, if there's anybody on Zoom, could you please raise your yellow hand and we will call you, your virtual hand, and we will call on you? I don't see any.
Great.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Chris Herring.
Hey, Tucker. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, so I think it's interesting. I mean, so first of all, I'll say I am pro sidewalk and I'm on the POCD. So my name is Chris Herring. I live at 107 Old Stamford Road, just down the road from Miss Teresa, who just spoke, and I agree with a lot of her, if not all of her comments. I think one of the things that I guess I'd go back to is that, from a math perspective, I think shifting the burden onto the town should really be looked at holistically. So I think the question of, everyone can add this to their umbrella policy for an extra $20 a month. It'd be interesting to understand what the town pays. And you mentioned, I don't have a number for that, but to go ahead and plow in front of one house may cost, $7 for the town, but may cost a homeowner $30 because they have to go hire the individual. There's all that logistics. So I think the idea of the town saving money, I completely understand that this economic equation has to be solved, but I would argue that the town also gets a higher assessment from the walkability of these buildings because they're accessible to town. And I think when you look at the Fieldcrest example, that was one less bus route that at $100,000 per bus route is required. So effectively that sidewalk pays for itself, both in tax revenues and abilities to eliminate a bus route. And so I think you have to look at this in a couple of different ways to kind of look at the full financial picture. And I agree with the thought that, hey, if the idea that, hey, adding an additional fee or adding liability will definitely have a chilling effect. So the idea of, adding a sidewalk to a given school or anywhere else, you're just going to run into a lot more headache in making those economic arguments for it. So it's disappointing, I guess, that the attorney hasn't looked at the actual liability and the savings, because it sounds like there's a lot of fear mongering around the town getting sued without an actual articulation of what that cost is. So I just think it needs to be an economic look at what the value is from a homeowner's assessment perspective and a school bus perspective against the costs. Very much like the sewer. It's a lot more expensive for an individual to put a sewer system into their structure than it is to run a sewer line. So I just encourage a full economic look at the process.
Thank you.
Not to mention our seniors who are attempting to keep in town. So you'd think that we'd want to encourage them to stay in town. So that's what I have, Commissioner Butterworth. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Anybody else on Zoom? Nope.
Okay. So let's move on to blight. Doesn't that sound upbeat? Let's have a blight party.
I just have a question. Tiger, when can you provide some solid estimates on the cleaning, the snow removal?
You mean if we do the full 20 miles?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, not, it would be minus the properties that are owned by the town, and it wouldn't
Oh,
include
no.
parking lots, it's just sidewalks.
So we'll go back and look at the different analyses that we had performed back in 2008 and update the numbers.
Well,
And
can
then-
we get an actual price per, I don't know, per block to do it?
I don't know if I can dial it down to that specific, but we can let us put together what we have, and then if you need more specifics, we can work from that. You know,
Okay.
maybe the original answer we give you will suffice. You know, if you're looking on a block by block basis, I don't know if we can get down to that specific amount, but we'll do our best to figure on what it would be, if you
So
will.
when I did my calculation, I approximated approximately 300 properties. And if you take 300 properties and we have, you know, a heavy snowstorm and you pay $100 per property to clean it, and assume that there's 5 or 10 snowfalls in the year, how much would it cost? And I'm coming up to 300,000. So
Okay.
I just want a realistic
Mhm.
number, just on the sidewalks, which would be their responsibility.
Right. No, that's all we'll give you.
Okay.
Is that, and we'll try to break it down for what the town is responsible for, what we're doing at present, and then the overall look as to what it would be for the entire network, if you
Okay.
will. And then from there, if you need additional information, just, you know, we'll try to break that down further for you.
Okay, so we could have it prior to our next meeting.
I don't know when your next meeting is, so
Well, I don't know. We'll let you know, but you've
Okay.
got at least 2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks, that's a good thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I was imprecise and you were correct. I just want to be sure that your estimates will include the sidewalks that we're currently not plowing because we don't have the manpower. I mean, that
Correct.
increment is going to be. in there.
Yes, it will be in there.
Thank you. We have the distinguished Mr. Brian Platts with us on Zoom. And, oh, you're looking to see who is somebody else in your house by that?
Hi, Tom. Yes.
Brian, could we impose on you to give us a quick primer on how the blight abatement process works now? And then also maybe you can mention, or I can, whatever, some of the opportunities to expand the current ordinance to reflect some recent state legislation.
Well, right now, excuse me, if I receive a blight complaint, I begin with a phone call. Always, always, always. I never go right to the poison pen. Things don't get better from there typically. Manage to achieve any success with a phone call, I then issue a notice of violation. Depending upon the violation of blight, if it were just a simple cleanup, I might give them 2 weeks. If it's involved in painting an entire house, I could give them a month or a month and a half to abate the conditions of blight. At that point, if they don't, I go to a citation. If they disregard the citation and still do not abate, then we go to fines of $100 a day.
And what are some of the examples of what would be considered a blight premises?
Well, we revisited a couple of years ago, but I think it was about 8 years ago. So one example used to be unkempt lawn, which is pretty vague. We now changed that to grass of 1 foot in length or more. So that's one example. There is significant fire or water damage, crumbling brick, concrete, or cinder blocks, seriously damaged, missing or loose siding, gutters, leaders, shingles, or roofing. So there's several definitions of blight.
And the reason we're having this discussion is because state law changed about a year ago to permit us to increase the fines that we would assess. And I believe for vacant properties, it would go from $100 max to $250 max, for example. And then also the state authorized us, which we apparently didn't have the ability to do in the past, to abate commercial properties as well as residential. Right?
Correct. Our ordinance currently is specific to residential properties.
Yeah. So it's pretty straightforward. That the state also adopted a number of other things, but other than those two examples that I gave, I haven't really studied them. But if you guys think it makes sense, then Hillary and I can go through it with Brian and try to come up with a draft that you can review specifically. But does anybody have any questions about, I should say that there is at least one property in town that we think we would be able to remediate if we do these amendments that we can't remediate now.
I have received through the years different complaints about commercial properties. They were never actionable, but I have received several complaints. And what I've done in the past with commercial properties is I make the phone call, even though I have no leverage with them and it's not covered in the blight ordinance. I always make a phone call anyway. And thus far, I've achieved willful compliance with one exception.
Anybody have any questions about this?
My question is, so we're looking at raising the fines for residential and including commercial
Right.
properties in the blight, and those are the only two things that would change?
Well, there's some others that are, I couldn't give you any detailed explanation off the top of my head, but that if somebody is really recalcitrant and you go through 3 rounds of attempted remediation, the fines can go up dramatically. And there's also some simplified process where instead of having to notify a lien holder on the property as well as the owner of the property, you wouldn't no longer have to notify the lien holder, but it's somewhat trivial compared to these sort of blight issues.
Oh, was it?
Call center.
Okay, thank you.
Any more?
I would suggest that you take a look at the definitions, the specific definitions of blight. For example, we have one definition is extensive graffiti. Well, we may all agree that any graffiti is blight, and does it need to be excessive before it's blight? Or can we just remove the word excessive and say graffiti is blight by definition?
Hey, this is your time in the spotlight. If you have a few of these ideas that we can clean up while we're cleaning up the ordinance,
No pun
let us know.
No pun intended.
No pun intended.
If we're doing this, it would be the time to revisit any of the shortfalls in the ordinance.
We want all of your ideas.
Is graffiti defined? Just out of curiosity, because one person's.
Excessive graffiti, that's all it says.
That's all, it doesn't define what graffiti.
Nope, just excessive graffiti. And I had a blight complaint about a Trump spray painted on a fence a couple of years ago. Now, the word Trump, or the name Trump, is not excessive, but it was spray painted. Is that graffiti?
Yeah, no, that's my question. Have we
I'm
defined-
asking you, make the call.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Can I just offer, Hillary and Tom, as you parse through these changes and see what might be appropriate for some sort of a red line, I'm happy to work with you for these questions, particularly the definition questions.
Well, yes, absolutely. We will absolutely include you in the process.
That's fun, creative.
Anything else? Well, then we don't need a formal motion, but it's more fun that way. Who would like to move to adjourn the meeting?
I would love to make a motion.
Do
to
we have a
adjourn.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everybody.